So we're live.
Oh, yeah.
So, hey, welcome back. Welcome to Sunset Studio Podcast.
I know. It's nice to be back at our old stomping grounds.
Old stomping ground. Chase, nice to have you here. Welcome, welcome. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Oh.
No idea what I'm doing. I'm just making this up as I go along. So, I hope this table doesn't crash like it did earlier.
That was kind of amazing, though.
But you're comfortable? You good?
I'm great.
Awesome.
This is great. This is super bougie.
Bougie, yeah. Well, thanks. I need to probably get some light, some ambient lighting, curtains, get a rug to throw down.
Yeah. Disco ball or something.
Yeah, but so I don't know what I'm doing. I thought it'd be fun to have a podcast because there's so many fun stories in the bicycle world.
Oh, yeah.
And you know that better than anybody. For those of you who don't know, Chase and I used to work together many a year ago.
God, I must have, 10 years ago?
Yeah, I think I started working with you about 2013, 2014. So it's got to be.
2014.
We've known each other about
Yeah.
10 years at least.
Yeah.
So that's pretty fun. Cheers to that.
I know. Cheers. I was just thinking how much this shop has shaped my life and everything that's good in it. I was thinking about that today. That if I hadn't come here, it wouldn't have led to. Sounds good. I'm gonna try not to slap it as I talk.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. Even if you do, it'll take it.
But this shop kept me here. I found my husband because of this shop. I have I know.
How many years married are you now?
It'll be 2 in April already.
Wow. And it was such a beautiful wedding. I got to go to it. So it's super fun.
Oh my gosh. We really wanted it to be fun. I'm so glad you came.
So yeah, you and Robert both worked at the bike shop together. Is like, when did y'all know, or when did you know he was like your person?
Oh gosh, that's kind of a funny story.
Yeah, do you mind telling it? I mean, I don't want to get you. You don't have to.
No. So I've moved to Huntsville to be with a different man.
Yeah.
And we were engaged, and things were pretty tough. And ultimately they were pretty tough. It kind of turned out for some pretty spectacular reasons on his end. But Robert and I hung out all the time, and we had gone for a bike ride, and we had stopped by one of the pools, and which one was it? Whitesburg pool. And we were just hanging out. I think the sun was setting, and I remember
magical
thinking,
things happen with the sunset. I'm just saying.
You had to take
Sorry,
that. Yeah.
All right, so
It would have been irresponsible of you not to take advantage of that opening.
So, okay, sorry. At the pool,
And
sunset.
I just remember thinking, sorry, that's my insulin pump.
Oh, no worries.
Why am I not marrying this man?
Wow.
And I chalked it up to, well, all relationships are work. The grass is always greener. And I really kind of didn't trust my instincts on that. And ultimately, after a couple of years of a lot of struggling, I realized that a lot of my fears were very well founded.
Yeah.
And but by then Robert was the man who had gotten away.
Ooh.
And I
So did you
came into the shop.
Did you win him back? Is that what?
Well, so I won him. I suppose the way it worked out is I came into the shop. It had been about a year, and I said hey to everybody, and it was really nice to see everyone.
Uh-huh.
And Robert walked up and he was like, hey, it's really good to see you. And I was like, oh, great to see you too. And later that night, I got this text from this number. And it said something along the lines of like, hey, way to make your life what you want it to be. You seem really happy. And I had taken Robert out of my contacts for a while at this point, and I said, I think that's Robert's number. I said, God, I hope this is Robert's number. And I said, hey, I have a bunch of free beer from Straight to Ale that Bruce had given me because I had worked on some bicycle racks for him that I welded. And I said, do you want to come over and help me drink it? And he said, free beer is great. And he came over, and I just remember we just sat and watched TV or something on my couch. I just remember looking over at him, and it was like it was always meant to be.
Aw.
It was like he was home, and it was so funny. It's very sappy, and kind of we just sort of picked up our friendship, and our relationship grew, and it was like we'd kind of always been together.
Oh, that's sweet.
It was super cool.
Well, that's a good kind of story and segue into one of the themes of this podcast. Is I kind of feel like the bicycle is a common thread or theme in so many people's lives, and that's how we're either connected or intertwined. And so the fact that like you really met your husband, your person, through the bicycle.
Absolutely. Right? Absolutely. And I kind of think I made an impression on Matt when I came in the very first time before I ever worked here, because I had a penny farthing tattoo.
Oh, yeah.
And he had a
right.
penny farthing tattoo. Yep. And we kind of clicked over that. And Robert was out at lunch, but I had come back to return some tools that I had talked Matt into let me borrow.
Uh-huh.
And Robert came up to me and said, I heard you've got a pretty cool tattoo. And so, but so many good things have happened in my life because of my time in the bicycle industry.
Do you, so here's a question I'm always going to ask somebody.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first time you learned, or do you recall when you learned how to ride a bicycle?
I remember learning to ride without training wheels. It's a very distinct memory.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about that.
So I was really young. I was probably 4. And I lived in New Orleans. I grew up in New Orleans. And so my mom would take me to Audubon Park. We would ride in Audubon Park. And it's a beautiful park with all the live oaks. And, you know, it's this massive loop. And, you know, it's so green. And, you know, there's water and ducks and geese.
Yeah, that's a beautiful park. I've been there like once.
And so my training wheels were off, and I had the balance and the pedaling down simultaneously. But what I could not master was the steering. But I would just get my momentum going, and then my bike would just go where it wants. And I have this really distinct memory. And it's like this vivid screenshot in my mind of me just steering into this family, and the dad just turning and at the last minute being like, whoa, and his shocked face and his hands out to just stopping me from crashing into his family as they're trying to enjoy their afternoon at the park is this vivid. Yeah, it's like the thumbnail image of that file memory in my head.
That's awesome.
Just that horrified face. It was great. Yeah.
Did you and your mom ride bikes a lot after you learned?
Yes. Well,
and how long did you live in New Orleans?
I lived in New Orleans till I was 22 or 23.
Oh, so were you born there?
Yes, I was born and raised, and I went to college there.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't have a car till I was 21 or 22. So I spent most of my life in New Orleans was on a bicycle.
Wow. And so you know all the nooks and crannies, don't you?
It really shaped my understanding of this city and what I appreciate about a city. I mean, Huntsville's great and everything, but man, you can't just ride from point A to point B on a bike. New Orleans is an old city. It was designed around pedestrians, horses, carriages. It makes it the perfect city to commute in on a bicycle. I mean, aside from the potholes and the drunk drivers and stuff, but you have a really big population of riders there because you have the college students, and you have people that it's more cost effective for them to be on a bicycle, and you have all the people that don't have their license because of all the DUIs. I remember reading in the Trek pitch book at my very first bike shop job that they were pitching the 4300, which is just an entry level mountain bike.
Yep.
And they were like, this bike is great for like kids who are kind of hard on their bikes, college students getting around, and people with DUIs that don't have their license anymore. It was in the pitch book.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really, really funny.
Hilarious, right? So, but so this was the 90s. So my mom would rollerblade, and so she'd rollerblade with me, and then sometimes she would hold on to the back of my seat and let me pull her around the park. And I just remember thinking I was so cool for how strong I was for being able to pull my mom around on the rollerblade. And bless her heart, I mean, that must have just broken her back and just to lean over.
But what fun!
Yeah,
like what a fun memory to have with your mom of you just like pulling her behind on.
Oh, it was great all through Auburn Park. Fabulous.
How often you get to go back to New Orleans?
I try to go at least once a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a particular time that you? Because we're in February. That's
I
Mardi
like
Gras.
to go,
we're about to hit Mardi Gras, right?
My birthday's in February, so I like to go in February a lot because it's my my birthday, and it usually falls around Mardi Gras. But kind of anytime it's warm and hot and sticky, I'm such a swamp creature. Like I truly,
you like the deep South heat.
Yes, I do. I need, I mean, I would need, in the winter here, I need a terrarium. Like I need a heat source. I have my seasonal affective disorder happy light, like the lizards do.
Yeah. So what's your thermostat setting when you're?
Robert tries to keep us reasonable at like 68 at night, but I get up earlier than him, and I will mess with thermostat. Yeah. Like crank it up, like it'll be 67, 68. He'll wake up, it's like 72 and like churning at the house.
Robert just wakes up in a puddle of sweat.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's funny.
So, but
22 years in New Orleans. And then
I moved to Denver
for a little bit.
Yep.
What brought you to Denver?
I thought it would be a fun adventure.
Short-lived then.
Yeah, I wanted to get back to the South. I had these like grand plans of moving back to New Orleans, but ultimately wound up in Huntsville because of my ex, and then also it seemed more cost effective. I was like, Huntsville, that's got to be so boring anyway. So I'll go and get I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I knew I loved the bicycle industry and would have loved to have stayed in the bicycle industry, but health insurance is super critical for me as a type 1 diabetic.
Well, yeah, your sensor went off.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So
you're type 1.
I'm type 1. I have an insulin pump, and it's the Omnipod. So it's just a little pod that's on my leg, and it talks to a continuous glucose monitor on the back of my arm. So at any given point, my pump, which is giving me insulin, knows exactly what my blood sugar is. So as my blood sugar goes up, it'll kind of respond and give me more insulin. If my blood sugar is stable or within like an appropriate range, it'll actually stop giving me that constant drip of insulin, so it won't like crash. But my continuous glucose monitor came off prematurely today, the adhesive, which is just something that happens. Any diabetic will tell you it's a constant battle. And so I have a new sensor on, but it has to warm up, and my pod hasn't been getting information from my sensor.
Is that what was going off
it's
then?
Angry at me.
Oh. Okay, so we don't have to anything to be
No,
worried about right
nobody
now.
has to intercede. I don't need to stop and drink a juice box or anything.
Maybe that's something I should like have for guests is like a little snack bar and treats.
I'm always down for a charcuterie table.
Ooh, that might be. I might have to introduce that in the next podcast.
Yeah.
It's just charcuterie munchies. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
That might be more schwanky than I'm, capable of.
I don't know. Put Lunchables on a nice wooden cutting board. I mean, that's charcuterie is just adult Lunchables.
When did you get diagnosed or figure out you had
Type 1 diabetes. It was bizarre. It was actually, I had just moved here and it was the beginning. So I moved here at the end of 2013. So it was 2014. And I had gone to the doctor because I wasn't feeling well. And I was worried I might have strep or the flu or something. And it was just an urgent care clinic. And he was like, you don't have either of those. You're just sick. You just have the crud. I remember he said that, the crud. And I was like, okay. And so he gave me some antibiotics and a big old strong steroid shot and said, you'll feel better. And ultimately, the symptoms of that illness went away. But I started having all kinds of weird symptoms like excessive thirst and like really severe leg cramps that would wake me up in the middle of the night. Things that are classic signs of uncontrolled diabetes. Nobody in my family is a type 1 diabetic. So I had no way of knowing. I'd started a new job. This was before I'd gotten hired here. I started a job waiting tables. So I thought, oh, well, I'm on my feet all the time. Maybe that's why my legs are cramping. And I had just gone to back to a doctor to get my regular prescriptions refilled. And they were doing like a full body scan. I wound up just getting like a full blood panel blood work.
All the works.
Yeah.
Done, so you could,
which I think was ultimately them just trying to charge my insurance, a bunch of money, but whatever. And then they said, oh, well, we'll get your results next month when you come back. And the next month I came back and they said, all your labs looked really good, except your fasting blood sugar was like 350 and you're not diabetic. So they must have just mixed something up in the lab. And I was like, oh, okay. And so they just gave me a finger stick right then. And they were like, oh, your blood sugar is 398. I guess you are diabetic.
so that's how they discovered it.
Yeah.
It's just almost like, hey, let's do a random blood test.
Yeah.
Oh,
totally on accident. I don't know what would have, like how long I would have gone on. I'm much better about paying attention to my body now and being like, I'm having chronic symptoms that are uncomfortable. I will address that. But especially when I was younger, I would just leave things to
chance.
Yeah. I would just be like, I'll walk it off.
Right. So you've probably now more so than ever are really well versed in the world of type 1 diabetes. And like, what do you know some of the, I guess, statistics on it or anything? For like type 1 versus type 2 is usually late onset or usually with somebody's poor diet or health, but type 1 is like you're kind of, that's genetic. You're born with it. And
it's an autoimmune disease. So you can have a genetic predisposition to it, but my understanding, and it's such a difficult disease. I have so much respect for like really good endocrinologists that, can like understand it and treat it, because you're kind of chasing your tail like constantly. And because it's, you have like a mathematical formula in terms of like how much insulin should you take if you're eating this many grams of carbs. Like it's a calculated rate. However, then you have to start thinking like, well, how many grams of fiber in the food, because that impacts how those carbs are processed. And then you have to think about, well, is this a glass of Coca-Cola or is this a plate of cheese and crackers? Because even if you're eating 30 grams of 30 grams of carbs of cheese and crackers or 30 grams of carbs in a Coca-Cola, that processes differently. So like I can eat 30 grams of carbs in a sitting, take the right amount of insulin for it, and my body processes the carbs and absorbs the insulin at kind of an appropriate rate. I can't drink 30 grams of carbs of Coca-Cola and process the insulin together.
Probably fast enough.
I can't process the insulin fast enough.
Yeah, because that Coke really
Yeah.
jumps into you.
Yeah.
That's actually.
But it's great when I'm having a crash.
Yeah. A lot of pro cyclists, when they're in a race or something like that, it used to be, they've probably changed it now, but it used to be flat Cokes was the way to get quick energy.
Oh my gosh! And you would want a flat Coke. You wouldn't want
you wouldn't want that carbonated, so that it would be flat.
But it's a little warm too.
It would be like they needed that. Maybe it's the last part of the race, the last minute surge or whatever, and flat Coke, and because it's just like straight up sugar water.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and that was the trick. And now we got all these nice gels and goos and
then back in the day, it was like drink a beer and have a cigarette break.
Yeah.
Open up the lungs and, drink a warm lager and,
bottle of wine. I'm good to go.
Yeah.
Wow. So, health wise, then you're good. You feel like you have it under control, or are you always just like conscientious of, ooh, I got to be careful of how I'm
it's
doing
a constant. It's a constant thing. I mean, I don't know how interesting all of this is. I mean, I do feel like a lot of pro cyclists though probably can relate to a lot of the same things that diabetics have to be aware of with their body in terms of like carb intake and hypoglycemia and hyperglycemia and having to kind of be really aware of what your body is doing. And
nutrition is huge in some of these long endurance races. And so knowing what's going into your body and what it does to your body is really the difference of finishing a race or an event and not. So, I think, and in fact, I've got a guest coming up in a couple of weeks, and he went, and he's got an amazing story, but short of it is he went from type 2 diabetes to doing Ironman. So
wow.
Yeah, and in a very kind of short, I can't wait to chat about kind of his path and his journey. But what you put into your body and also what the output with your body of what you're doing is huge and critical. And I recently just did a race. It was a running race. So,
oh my God,
I don't really like to run. So if I do it, I got to really plan for it. I really didn't plan for it. So a lot of what I looked at was, okay, I need fuel at this point, this point, this point, this point. And I miscalculated. And so mile 10, 11, 12 really hurt. But I really could have used some more, glucose, sugar, anything to like give my body a little bit more juice, as it were. And I just kind of miscalculated a little bit. It wasn't that bad, but I also hadn't been training, so it probably also hurt because I don't know.
I mean, God, how long was it?
It was a silly like half marathon.
Oh, just a silly half marathon. I hadn't really been training.
I really haven't. It was down in Auburn, and my son like, hey, let's do a half marathon. I was like, all right, I'll sign up for it and do it with you. And but I've been doing so much endurance all of my life. Like I looked at it and was like, oh, this is really just,
the foundation of your conditioning was there.
It's 4 5Ks and an extra mile. So it's like, oh,
4 or 5K sounds farther than a half marathon.
But it's like you, but versus
whatever you got to tell yourself, man.
Versus 13 miles,
right?
There's just like 3 mile increments, and so you just mark them off as so it's in my mind. It was like smaller chunks. So that's impressive. That's what I told myself anyway. But then when I timed it out, it's just like, okay, it's about 2 hours of exercising. I can do 2 hours of exercising, right? And so I wasn't trying to go fast. I was just trying to finish. And I mean, can you watch a movie for 2 hours? Yeah. So I can exercise for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Just go real slow and smooth and eat a bunch of stuff. So it was just kind of like an eating competition in a way.
That's a competition to get
But
behind.
but at the same time, yeah, eating. Have you jumped into? Ooh, I know you a little bit.
Yeah.
You can throw back some shrimp.
Oh man, shrimp, crawfish,
Yeah, and
oysters.
this makes all this. I didn't realize you lived in New Orleans for as long as you did. So no wonder you're such a crawfish shrimp girl.
Oh yeah, I remember
Yeah.
my mom teaching me how to peel a crawfish at Frankie and Johnny's. Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
You know, my little fingers just really struggling with it. I don't. I got this system down though.
So, man, I guess this season we might have to have we need to organize some kind of crawfish boil.
Oh yeah, I will mess up some crawfish.
Robert's trying to get your attention here. What's he got?
Oh right, he was trying to have me mention. I've done a couple of hot pepper eating contests as well.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can stand the heat a little bit?
Oh yeah.
Are you a spicy kind of
For sure.
aficionado?
Yeah, yes. I was second the first time, and then the second time the only other competitor was another woman who I kind of knew. The only other competitor left at the end was another woman who I kind of knew, and she said, "I'll give you the trophy if you just tie with me right now." And I said, "Okay."
So, okay, what are the rules with that?
So the rules are they start out with like a jalapeno, and you can't have anything to drink.
Okay.
And you can't get up. And if you throw up, you're out.
Okay. Sounds reasonable.
So, and it's usually about like 7 or 8 peppers, increasing heat.
Okay.
And then if you still have multiple competitors at the end, they just make you keep eating whatever that spiciest one was until somebody taps out or throws up.
What's the scale rating? What is that called? Robert, you know this, don't you?
Scovilles. I wanted to say Scoreville, but I knew that wasn't
Scoville.
right. Scovilles.
So
yeah.
what were you on? What does that go to? Like,
Robert. Yeah.
So million Scoville scale is like ghost pepper. Okay. And what's so a basic like banana pepper or jalapeno pepper Scoville is 5,000. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're going from 5,000 to 1,000,000.
Yeah.
And you're like throwing back a million Scoville
so
scale
I
peppers.
ate like the first go round when I came in second. I had eaten all of the peppers within the contest, and then I ate like 8 Carolina Reapers.
Ooh.
And then at some point, like your mouth is only going to be in so much pain. The pain level doesn't increase, but what happens is your body starts to go, this is really dangerous.
Do you sweat? Do you get?
Yeah, I don't really sweat that that easily. I mean, just
well, okay. What does it do the next day for digestive?
You have to throw up.
Oh, so
you absolutely have to throw up.
Does it burn?
It hurts so bad. Your stomach hurts so bad. I did not throw up. I felt really, I was Icarus that after I finished the competition, because Robert had the whole crowd cheering
Icarus?
for me. You know, who flew too close to the sun.
That's a great description. I like that.
Thank you. So Robert had the whole crowd just going bananas for me. And I just couldn't put away another pepper. I knew if I ate the 9th Reaper, I was going to throw up then. Like I couldn't physically swallow it at that point.
Right.
My body was just rejecting it. And so I had to tap out. And the guy who had competed, who had done the competition a few years in a row before this, they didn't make him eat another one. So we actually ate the same number of peppers, but I guess he got the trophy because I tapped out. And anyway, after the competition, he was like, "Have you thrown up yet?" And I was like, "No, I feel fine." He's like, "You need to throw up." And I was like, "I'm okay." And we went home and my stomach started to hurt so bad. I just was like, "Robert, I think you need to go to the store and get Pepto." So he went to the store to get Pepto. I, at that point, like couldn't stand up straight, couldn't sit up. I crawled on my hands and knees to the bathroom.
This is the most amazing story.
I'm just like weeping. The pain was so intense. And I just puked my guts out in the toilet. I mean, at that point, of course, it's super painful, but the relief in your stomach is almost immediate.
Sure.
And I just like laid down on the floor. And then Robert came home and he said he just like opened the bathroom door to check on me, and just the wall of spice hitting his face, like his eyes just started watering. And I just like, and I was barely like aware of my surroundings, and I just hear him lean over. I hadn't even bothered to flush the toilet. And so he just like flushed the toilet.
Oh my
and
goodness.
It was just like, "I have your Pepto." And I'm like, "Thanks." Like, and then I did it the next year.
Oh, you came back.
Yeah.
To defend
to defend my title.
Yeah.
And then Aaron and I decided to tie, but I have the trophy. So, and our picture is together on the wall at Yellowhammer.
Oh, so this was at Yellowhammer.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is the most amazing. There's a great Simpsons episode of Homer eating like the hottest pepper. And there's like, no one can do this, and somehow Homer, like, he somehow swallows like with wax, candle wax, and he's able to eat it. And then the episode goes into this most amazing hallucinogenic episode, and I think there's even a portion of it where it's like 3D animated. It's awesome. You need to see that if you never.
Oh, The Simpsons is I didn't actually start watching The Simpsons until I was really in my 30s. And I have now, it's kind of what's constantly on in the background. It's like my emotional support noise.
I think everybody needs to watch it because it's going to predict everything that's going to happen. It predicted Trump.
It did. And it was so exciting the other day. I got to play a clip for one of my coworkers where it's one of the flashbacks where Marge and Homer were in the 90s, and Homer had that grunge band, and he winds up in the hospital, and Marge is there, and they're like, "Wow, and the 90s are wild and so many things are changing, but at least there'll never be a president as bad as Bill Clinton." And they're like, "Can you imagine lying under oath? There will never be another president, never as bad." And Marge is like, "Never, ever." And,
oh, man.
And I played that. And then it cuts to the future, and Lisa Simpson is president, but she had inherited the administration from Trump. And they're like, "Everything is terrible." And I played that for Anita, and she was like, "Oh, is this like a new episode?" And I was like, "No, this came out in like the early 2000s or something." She's like, "But Trump wasn't." And I was like, "Oh, you didn't know? They predict the future like all the time." And it blew her mind. It was so exciting for her. Yeah.
Well, speaking of future, you work for a very futuristic company, right?
Yes.
So tell me about that.
So I work for a small like aerospace engineering company called Yeti Space.
Okay. Wait, Yeti, like YETI?
Yep. Yeti Space.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I kind of got that job because I had gone to welding school.
Yeah. Ooh, I actually, let's dive into that before we talk about Yeti. You're a professional welder.
Sure. I mean, yes, I have done it professionally.
You've got credentials and the degree, and went to school, and you work for. I know you worked for a company at one time welding. So
I worked for Polaris.
Is there not a degree of professionalism?
No, I am. I have.
You have that
I am
trade
a
skill.
Professional welder. Yes.
Is there a type of weld that's your favorite?
Or
welding technique?
I love TIG welding,
Okay.
but it's not the one I got to like. I worked when I worked for Polaris. That's manufacturing, and that was like MIG welding. And I kind of got hired on at Yeti Space, which we do a lot of contract work with NASA. To ultimately maybe take step into the shoes of the welder that Yeti Space has now, who's a
Mhm.
really incredible TIG welder. But I really need to get more TIG welding under my belt. But I haven't really gotten a lot of on the job experience TIG welding, because when something needs to be welded, it's probably kind of critical, and Mark does it. There's
Gotcha.
not a
Okay.
lot of time, and so it's funny.
How long was welding school?
I
When
went
you
for like a year and a half, and I actually was going for an associate's degree, which I'm just a few credits shy of,
Oh,
because I had
okay.
gotten hired on at Polaris, and I should have made sure I finished welding school, but
Hmm.
it seemed like, having worked seemed great, but
Yeah.
that schedule was pretty brutal, and it took off like a
Okay.
shot. So I need to take one weld class, and then I need to take like a science class and a Microsoft Office class.
Oh, to get your full
Yeah.
official like
Yeah.
welding
Yeah.
credential degree.
So
What was the hardest thing about learning how to weld? Or
gosh.
is there a hard thing? Is it
No,
just like
welding is
systematic? Like
super
you learn
difficult.
this?
You know what I think is the kind of the super critical thing about learning to weld is, no matter what you do, like no matter how much welding you have to get done, the welding isn't going to be what's the most time consuming part of it. It's the preparation ahead of time,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
right? Your metal has to be clean. The fit up has to be correct, you know. Um your settings on your machine need to be correct. I would say like learning to read blueprints is also like, I mean, that's like learning a language,
Yeah.
So, um, and so the, like the kind of the patience and attention to detail you need to kind of not take shortcuts and go through the steps and prepare everything properly so that you will get the very best weld possible and not take shortcuts. That's kind of one of the more challenging things for somebody like me who's like, I want to do this thing now all of a sudden, and um to kind of take a step back and be patient
Be
about
patient.
it.
Yeah. My daughter is in high school and she's taken a welding class.
Good for
Which
her.
I'm so excited that and the most challenging thing that she's been facing, or at least the last time she told me about it, was vertical welds
Oh yeah,
versus, I guess, horizontal welds. Vertical
correct.
welds, you're working against gravity there,
Right.
and so you got to hold everything a particular way
Mm-hmm.
to get the right
Yeah.
weld
You
joint
can
going.
actually let gravity work with you if you kind of,
Time
you
it
can,
correctly. Yeah.
right. You can kind of mitigate that and like know if gravity's going to pull your weld down this way, then you can approach, change your work angle and your travel angle and stuff a little bit. But I mean, that the hardest thing about welding is like know, you can learn about it, you can watch all the videos, but there's no substitution for just time under the hood. There's
Just
no substitution for time under the hood, and you've just got to grind that out.
how many hours do you think it takes to become proficient at kind of that weld
It
technique?
depends on the welding
Okay.
for sure. I mean, I would say a lifetime regardless.
Um. All right. So fast forward to now.
Yeah.
You're working for Yeti,
Yes.
and that's a aerospace engineering company.
Yes. And I'm a technician, so I don't make a lot of like decisions about things, right? Somebody says, "Okay, we need, we have these." I've wound up doing a lot of wiring. So,
Okay.
Somebody will be like, "Okay, we have this vacuum chamber, or we have this pressure vessel, it's going to hold liquid nitrogen, and we want this many temperature sensors on there and these pressure transducers and all of that, and we need all of that, those things that have wires coming off of them to talk to a computer, and we need that computer to take this data, record it, and we can interpret it. And so you need to build like data acquisition systems for it. So then, a engineer will be like, here's the wiring schematic. I need, this many, I need this system to be able to, process 48 thermocouples or 160,
Wow.
and so put those here. I want you to wire those in here, and I want you to wire, so it's just reading schematic. A lot of that is like just being tidy with it, making sure everything is labeled, don't mix things up,
But it's aerospace, so you're basically working on certain items that are going out of the atmosphere into.
I work in I work on the Arsenal. I work in the propulsion research department.
Okay.
So a lot of this is like the research behind it. Like,
Okay.
okay. So like, how can we optimize cryogenic fuel storage and usage and transfer from one container to another in space? How can we keep things cold? How can we,
So
chill things down?
how do you go from bicycle world to aerospace?
Well,
Do you find
it all
like,
started with my English literature and medieval studies degree.
oh my gosh, this is why I love you, Case. You're like, how does that correlate to anything?
I wanted to enjoy college,
Okay.
and
So you took.
I took English literature and then medieval studies, because medieval studies, the minor, was awesome. Like I took a whole class on the Legend of Robin Hood. I took a whole class on vampires and werewolves. Took a whole class on just the Epic of Beowulf specifically. I took a whole
Ooh.
class on the Canterbury Tales, and then I took another class on all of Chaucer's other works.
You strike me as the person who has really good recollection of these stories. Like, I studied all of that. I studied Canterbury Tales and Beowulf, and it's just like,
Well, I was introduced to, like, for instance, the Epic of Beowulf when I was like in third grade. I had a very good third and fourth grade teacher. So we obviously weren't studying like Seamus Haney's translation. It was
okay,
like
yeah, you lost me there.
just a guy who
Yeah,
was
I know,
really
but
good.
I mean, like, I don't remember those things.
And so, it's just, just through the repetition of, the exposure of
Right.
repetition, and it's what I'm interested in. It's what sticks. I mean, I also took science classes, but, I can't, I don't have the same recollection of that, those things. It's what makes
So it sounds like you have good recollection of things that you find some kind of
Sure.
intrinsic passion for.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is, I don't know why I'm bringing this up, but you probably loved yourself some Game of Thrones, right?
Yes.
Well, and not the TV
show.
series. I'm talking about the books.
Yes, the book. I read the first
Has he
book when I was
finished the books?
No. He's
What's up with that?
completely abandoned us. We are orphans in the woods. We're supposed to just get the scraps of the show and just
be satisfied with the HBO crap ending.
It's
like, is he gonna ever finish it? It's like one book that he has left, right? Or is it?
It was supposed to be 7.
Uh-huh.
And I think there's 5.
Oh, so he's a little bit behind.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think's taking so long? Or do you think he just like wakes up and like bathes in the milk and honey of all the HBO?
I mean, it's
royalties.
I kind of can't imagine. I don't know if it's, such a big undertaking. I mean, it could be one of those things where it's like he has this vision. This man has clearly like known the path he wanted to take with this, right?
Well, and so everybody listening or watching knows who we're talking about. We're talking about
George R.R. Martin.
Yeah, George.
Yeah.
George R.R. Martin.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, maybe it's one of those things where he has this like vision and this like Plato's perfect forms perfection, novel, and he can't stop tinkering with it. I don't know if he just is like, well, I don't know. Everybody's so into the show, like, and that seems like a lot of work. I might as well just go drink Mai Tais on the beach.
And to be fair, and I haven't read all the books, but what I've kind of read of them and a little expert, he's very descriptive in everything.
He's incredibly descriptive. He keeps so many. There are like every chapter is told from the point of view of a different character, right?
Yeah.
And so many characters. Like there's not just one main character, right? At any given point, somebody who has been an antagonist for the first 3 books, all of a sudden in the 4th book, there are chapters told from their point of view, and it completely changes your perspective on that person. Every character that's introduced, I mean, there are still some characters who are extras, right?
Yeah.
But like, I mean, there are so many characters that are completely, fully fleshed out as complicated human beings with backstories and emotions and reasons for what they're doing and growth. And like, it is a massive undertaking, you know?
Yeah.
So it's so much work, I would imagine. I mean, unless he is just, it just like comes to him in a vision, like, you know, just Smith and, you know, with
I love this about you. You have so much passion for this genre of maybe just the series, and I'm sure of other things, but it's really, I hadn't chatted with you in forever, and this is one of our longest conversations. And man, I love how passionate you are about
I've
certain
been
things.
reading dragon books since I was very small.
Dragon books, that's great. Okay, in the book series, do you have a favorite character?
Tyrion. I love Tyrion. The imp.
Oh, okay.
Peter Dinklage.
Yeah. Dude, he's
a rock star.
He's Peter Dinklage. I started probably 3 seasons into Game of Thrones, and so I had to catch up, and I started watching him, and his acting is just really everything he does. You know, he is a little person, and everything he does, I completely forget his stature because his acting ability is so good. It disappears on screen, and it's just like I'm invested in that character. And I think that speaks volumes of somebody like an actor who can just make you forget about a certain
anything that would normally be distracting and be like how you identify them, right?
Yeah.
Like Peter Dinklage, the actor, is Tyrion. It's not Peter Dinklage. Oh, you know, the actor that's a little person, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's by far
an incredible presence.
By far, probably, I think one of the coolest characters in the show, and then in the book, and then in the show in of itself. I think he just brought that to life. So
justice for sure.
It's
I absolutely love Tyrion. I like the Hound.
Yeah,
a lot.
Hound's a good character,
and I love
I like the
Onion Knight.
And I need to probably read these books, but the Hound and is air. Oh man, I'm terrible with the character names. This is probably why I don't read books like that, because I'm like, who is that again? The little girl
Arya.
Yeah,
she's great.
Arya and the Hound's like relationship was really fun. Yeah,
Arya is fantastic. She's wonderful. I
wonder how many people we lost now in this podcast who's like, Game of Thrones, what?
Or they're like, oh my god,
Game of Thrones nerds.
I'm not into it. But so I have one of my, like maybe my 3rd or 4th tattoo is a dire wolf of Stark.
Oh really?
On my ribs that I got, and it was the style of the wolf that's on the first paperback edition of the first book. So it's not the dire wolf that you see in the show. It's like a true medieval wolf, rampant, you know, sitting up. It's like paws in the air, big long tongue, very stylized. And I had that done on my ribs when I lived in Denver.
How many tattoos you got?
I don't know.
Just all bunch of
30
30.
something.
Are you addicted? Do you want another one? Are you planning another one?
Always. I'm always planning one, but I don't regret any of them. I feel like I'm very lucky. You know, I don't have one that I'm like, oh man, I wish I hadn't gotten that one, or that one looks like crap, or, you know, all of them are like a story or a point in
meaning to you.
time. I mean, not necessarily a very good meaning. Maybe the meaning was I had $60, but in an afternoon, you know. But it was a time. It was an event. It was a
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
You know. So I've gone to England to get tattoos.
How many cute dog tattoos do you have?
I've got the pug. I've got the big black pug.
Yeah.
And then I have the 3-legged dog that was from that fundraiser for my tattoo artist.
So you see what I did there? Transition to
dogs.
Yeah. So you've got the most adorable, cutest little dog right here in your
baby
lap.
Bing.
His name is Bing.
Her name is Bing.
Her name is Bing.
Yes. And there's Rosie right on cue.
Hey Rosie, come here. Come here, Rosie. Hey Rosie.
Rosie is, you know, back where she belongs.
Rosie's the best dog. You can stay right here, Rosie.
Yeah.
So one thing and reason I wanted to have you on the show right here is because you do an amazing thing. You do a lot of dog rescue. So like, how did you get started in that? How many dogs do you currently have at your house? Obviously I think your favorite dog is a pug, right?
I'm very fond of pugs. I'm very fond of pugs. So my family has been doing animal rescue since I remember one of our first fosters was who we ultimately foster failed. But so my family brought home, I was 10, from the shelter, this dog named Myrtle.
Myrtle, that's a great name.
And she was long like a basset hound, short legs.
Yeah.
And she was covered with this dirty black, like dusty black horse hair. And she had like kind of a bottle brush tail, and she had some like wiry gray hairs like everywhere. And she had this like kind of big wolfish head, and all of her teeth were worn down to the gums. And she obviously had some chow in her because she had black gums and a black tongue. And she had perked up ears. Ultimately, she wound up getting a hematoma in one ear. So that ear crumpled up. So she had one ear that was like a cauliflower ear on the side of her head, and one ear that perked up. And she was mean.
Oh.
And my family had gone to the shelter to help somebody else like pick out a dog to adopt. And then there was somebody had brought in this mama dog, and she had 9 puppies. They had been born the day before at the shelter, and it was May 19th, my mom's birthday. And they were all going to be put to sleep because Myrtle was heartworm positive, but she couldn't receive heartworm treatment until her puppies were weaned. And
you have really good recollection.
Oh yeah. Well, Myrtle was like the beginning.
You need to do you ever write books, or like, have you ever thought of writing a book?
I've thought about it some. I've read so many amazing books by so many amazing authors, you know,
because your attention to detail and descriptions are like, that's what you fill books with, you know? So, yeah. All right. Sorry. I digress. Back to animals.
So basically like Myrtle couldn't be adopted. This was in New Orleans, right? So Myrtle couldn't be adopted out because she couldn't be spayed. She couldn't be spayed because she had a bunch of puppies, and the shelter wasn't going to raise the puppies, but they really weren't supposed to let her leave. Like, it was very bureaucratic, right? Yeah. It was like talking in circles. Like, Myrtle couldn't leave for rescue because she couldn't get the care she needed, but she couldn't get the care she needed because the shelter couldn't take care of her and the puppies and stuff. Anyway, so their solution was to just let my mom and her wife sneak Myrtle and her 9 puppies out the back of the building. And just take them. And they were like, anyway, so we had 9 9 puppies, and they were all different. They were like in sets of 3. So they were like 3 brown ones, 3 black ones, and like 3 black and white ones. But then within each of those sets of color schemes, each of those puppies had a different body shape and coat type. So there was like
And how old were you when this?
10.
Wow, what great memory you have.
That's
That's
it was. I mean, it was such an adventure.
yeah.
You know, I loved dogs and puppies. It was so
and then
exciting.
Robert just kind of held up his fingers. You have 10
There are 10 dogs at our house.
Now, how many of those are rescues? How many of those are?
They're all rescues except my standard poodle Bastion, who is I'm trying to work with him to be a diabetic alert dog for me.
Oh, wow.
So, and he's had a great deal of training and would be fully capable of alerting me to my low blood sugars if I had the time to have work with him diligently for a couple of hours every day and was a little bit more experienced. So poor Bastion, scent training has kind of fallen by the wayside. He does get a lot of public access training. He's quite good, in public, and he came when we got him. He was 4 months old and came with a foundation of skills.
So how and I'm ignorant to this, but in terms of service dogs, is that something that is often trained? Is diabetic service dogs?
Yeah, diabetic alert dogs. They can be trained to alert to high blood sugar, low blood sugar, both.
How do they detect that? How do they? Is that
they can smell it in your sweat and saliva?
Oh, really? Oh, so it's not. They're not alerted to how you're acting or anything, or your response to things. They're sniffing.
They can
things.
smell it.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
And then but there are dogs that can alert to cardiac events and stuff. There are dogs that naturally alert to a diabetic's low blood sugar levels and get really agitated about it,
Wow.
And even kind of instinctively do the Lassie thing and
I had no idea on that.
There's some really great stories.
I guess the only thing I've really ever known about a dog is its reaction to when I have a snack in my hand for it.
Right. Well, and poor Bastion, he's our honors student, and then our 5 pugs are absolute juvenile delinquents. I mean, they're all misfits.
So 10 dogs. What's the feeding regimen like? How many bags of dog food do you go through? And then what's the poop regimen like? Because
we've got a big front yard and a big backyard, and it's just
so
it's just
your yard's well fertilized.
Yes, and then that's just something you kind of maintain. It's not like not everybody goes on we don't take 10 dogs on a 2-mile walk through the neighborhood and have to right. And so and one of those dogs is he's also a pug. His name is Peanut, and he needed to go into rescue. So I contacted a pug rescue in Tennessee, and they just said, "Hey, can you hold on to that Mid-South Pug Rescue? They're absolutely amazing."
So do you? Is there? I was gonna.
And somebody's gonna. So he's staying with us until next Saturday, and then there's somebody that's gonna come pick him up and get him into the rescue.
I think I was gonna ask you, is there an organization that you work with locally?
I have worked with a few. I have sort of I don't consistently work with one rescue. I have worked with all of them, and so we, I love fostering older dogs. I like fostering dogs that maybe have mange. Demodex mange is something that can really get out of control and make a dog look and smell terrible, but is really kind of caused. It's a mite in their body, but when their autoimmune system is compromised, then their body can't fight off the mites and keep that population under control. Right. And so you can take a dog with mange that nobody would look at or want to even put in their car, let alone take into their house and put on the couch. And it's you get them a little bit of medicine, a couple of baths, and just proper diet, and then
they're
all of a sudden
a
you
whole new dog.
have, yeah, a whole new animal. And then I really have a passion and feel very strongly for doing hospice fostering for dogs,
Yeah.
where a dog is turns up at the shelter, whether they're turned in by their owners or found as a stray, and they don't have very long to live. Maybe it's a week, maybe it's 6 months, maybe you don't know, but it's not a commitment that a lot of people want to take on. The kids want to, you take the kids to go pick out a dog at the
Get a little
shelter. You don't
puppy,
want to be like, okay, well, remember, this one's going to die in like 3 months.
Yeah.
It's hard. That's hard for people to take a dog home, get attached to it just to watch it die. But for me, it is very sad for me to think whether the dog is a stray and picked up, and all of a sudden they're in a loud, scary, noisy shelter, probably on a concrete floor, surrounded by strangers, hungry, sick, right? Probably covered in fleas. And the last moments of their life are going to be surrounded by strangers, hungry, thirsty, cold, itchy. And that's their last moments, right? Or a dog that lived, it's like 15 years with a family, and all of a sudden that family, for whatever reason, doesn't want to deal with an old dog anymore. And then that dog's last moments are dying on a cold concrete floor, not understanding why their family left them there. So as sad as it is for me to take home a dog, take care of it, get attached to it, and it die, it is so much sadder to think that that dog's last moments were scared and alone rather than full of, steak.
Where do you think you developed that compassion for that kind of end of life for animals and dogs specifically?
I spent a lot of time volunteering at the animal shelter in New Orleans, and not just like on Saturdays. I was homeschooled for like half of 8th grade and then most of high school. And I spent a lot of time, 5 days a week, 6 days a week.
Yeah.
At least a few hours, sometimes the whole day.
So you developed a lot of bondship and friendships with such like, dogs have this like innate unconditional love that they will give you if you treat them right.
Yes.
And so.
Well, and dogs are particularly fascinating. I mean, there are other animals that have been domesticated for as long or longer as dogs have been, but dogs are evolved uniquely to kind of take on a lot of human-like mannerisms.
Yeah.
Right. So dogs will look at a person in the face, and they'll you'll kind of look at somebody's face from like right to left, right? I believe is what it is. And so dogs like have learned to read people's facial expressions, and they learn to pick up on human body language, things that wouldn't be a natural way for dogs to communicate, but they have really like evolved to have a predisposition to read and understand humans, right in a way that is much more complicated than just like, you give me shelter and food, so I'm going to stick around
and smell if you're having a diabetic episode,
right? And so there's just a lot of evidence to suggest, that shows, they're doing MRIs now. There are scientists and amazing trainers who have worked with dogs that have trained dogs to sit still in an MRI machine while awake to receive an MRI so that they can monitor a dog's brain activity when they're shown, their person's face or their favorite toy. And so that, now we have a lot more information about just like how complex their brains are. And if you think about it, dogs understand a lot of our body language. Some dogs understand hundreds of words, right? But can you imagine being an organism that is born with a desperate need to be a companion to a different species who you will never like fully like, you know, understand,
Yeah.
right? You're completely different species. You are completely at their mercy. You know, your ancestors were like capable of traveling for, you know, dozens and dozens
Thousands
of
of
miles
miles,
in
yeah.
a day just to take down your own kill. And now you will the predisposition to sit at a train station waiting for your human to come back.
What was the
That was
name of that dog?
Hachi.
Hachi, yeah.
Yeah, right. And you don't know why, and it's
Yeah.
because we selected them, right? And
Yeah.
like, can you imagine having that like compulsion, but not having the cognitive ability to even understand that, like, wow, this is a bizarre compulsion that's been selectively bred, you know, over right?
Yeah,
And
dogs,
but you just like, it
fascinating.
is such a vulnerability, you know. And it's kind of heartbreaking, really, and I just think it's worth defending. And they need a voice. They have no voice.
Oh yeah, yeah. Let's. Yeah, and I think we also have like a cute picture of another pug too. Let's go to that.
That's Unagi. That's my first pug.
That's your first. Are pugs kind of your favorite?
Unagi is what
developed that.
yeah.
And Unagi he's passed, right?
Yes,
Okay.
he died in December of 2022.
And then this is Bing.
This is baby Bing. Yeah, she's not a baby. She's just my baby.
Looks like a baby.
Yes.
What is your favorite, I guess, personality trait of
they are so stoic. They're game for anything as long as they're with their people, right? They're like, okay, like,
I'll do it as long as you're there.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, and so, and that, you know, they're so heartbreakingly trusting. Again, it's this thing that kills me of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we foster pugs all the time, and you'll get pugs that come to us a lot. Like the last few pugs we have fostered that have gone on to like Mid-South Pug Rescue, just from a family that was just like, I can't, like, either my child's been super sick. It turns out they're incredibly allergic to the pug,
yeah.
right? They have to get rid of the pug. So this, you know, so like poor Peanut came to our house. I don't think he had been like hyper socialized, right? Like, I don't think they had any other dogs besides Peanut. I don't think Peanut got, like, I think Peanut had, you know, was let out in the yard and stuff, but it wasn't like they took Peanut to like the park and to, you know, at dog friendly restaurants and stuff like that, which is, I mean, I'm sure Peanut had a perfectly happy life, lived with a little kid, you know.
Sure.
But like Peanut's whole world got turned completely upside down when Peanut was dropped off at our house yesterday. And Peanut was scared.
Yeah.
But Peanut was like, okay, but here's a person. And he just got into Robert's lap and he was just like, as long as I've got, like, this person's going to look out for me.
Yeah. I'm safe.
This stranger is going to look out for me, and I'm going to sit with him, and like things are going to get better from here. And like, and poor pugs have been selectively bred to look this way. And they are so stoic, and they're kind of like a little bit unaware of how like technically fragile they are. Like, they're a very sturdy little dog.
Yeah.
But they're very vulnerable to like overheating, right? And they're very prone to like eye injuries. But you like don't tell a pug that. They don't know, right? And so they're easy. It's kind of easy to ignore their needs or think everything's fine unless you kind of like pay attention. And so Oh Jesus.
Oh, you took a dog. You took a pug kayaking.
Yes. Well, I mean,
Oh, for half a sec, can we go back to the unagi
yeah.
photo? So looks like you do a lot of fun things with your dogs, because that looks like you're wearing a bicycle helmet there.
Yeah, so I was
And
writing. So like, here's a perfect example of
that is
like
that like a baby Bjorn?
it's a pug edition baby Bjorn. You know, it's a dog specific baby Bjorn.
That's awesome.
But like, here's the thing. I got a Unagi from the shelter. Brought him into my life, and then one day I was like, I love biking. Unagi loves being with me. I'm just gonna stick him in this, and we'll see how it goes.
No problems.
None. Just like taking it.
Have you taken Bing on some bike rides?
Bing has not gone on bike rides. Bonsai has gone on some bike rides.
Okay. And Bonsai has gone kayaking.
And Bonsai's gone kayaking. And Unagi used to go inner tubing with us.
Okay.
Like, I never took time. Like, there's so many people that like take the time to slowly introduce their dogs to the running water, and like, oh, we're gonna just have the inner tube out in the living room so they get used to being around it and stuff like that.
Just like
Unagi, you're wearing a life jacket. Let's see if you like this. And he was like, cool, and like just balanced himself on the inner tube with me. And then we just floated down. I mean, it wasn't like whitewater; it was the Flint River, but and he was just like great, because he was just game for it. He was just like, all right, as long as I'm doing my thing with my people,
Is there so maybe in the show notes and all the things, I still don't know what I'm doing with this podcast, but sometimes we can put in some information. Is there an organization or something that we should kind of put in to let people get in contact if they want to do any kind of rescues or anything like that? Or...
Sure, absolutely. So I mean, if you're looking to adopt a pug, the closest pug rescue is Mid-South Pug Rescue, and they're a fabulous organization. There's a rescue based out of Arab called Brindley Mountain Animal Rescue.
Okay.
And it's run by a woman named Rhonda Lindsay, who is one of the most incredible badasses on the planet. And her like dog, her heart dog is the Great Dane, and she does Great Dane rescue. But of course, where she is in Alabama, she winds up with just every kind of shape, size, right, age, breed of dog, and Auburn. I mean, not Auburn. It's Arab. It's a very underserved area, right? There isn't. Huntsville is great. There's the Greater Huntsville Humane Society, which does amazing work, and Huntsville Animal Services, which is the animal control facility of the city of Huntsville. And it is a, great animal, right? Arab doesn't have something like that. I mean, there is like animal control, but I think it's like 5 kennels and you get like 2 days to maybe go find your dog there or something.
Gotcha.
I mean, and it's because, they don't, it's because they don't get enough, they don't have enough resources. They can only do what they can do. And she does incredible work. And not only that, but she is in touch with rescues in the north, like in the New England area, and just like a little bit south of there, a couple of different states. The farther north you get, like the better served the animal community is. Alabama is a terrible state to be an animal, in which to be an animal.
Oh, really?
It is a terrible state to be an animal, and anybody in rescue will tell you that. And that's a whole other really horrific, tragic thing. And so Rhonda will transport dogs and cats to these rescues up north, where like they have like homes like waiting for them. People are like waiting for these dogs, adopt them sight unseen. And and she does it, she has some land and some space, but and then relies on fosters. She, any rescue here relies on foster homes, right?
So what we'll do is,
and so Brindley Mountain though is
what we'll do is really, some of those contacts we'll put into the show notes, and then that way if somebody wants to get involved, I think that's a great thing.
I would say, the very least you can do is like follow a rescue on their social media page and engage with their posts so that those posts stay visible, right? The algorithm keeps them visible.
Gets hits,
very least you can do.
Find the right connection.
Engage with the
or a host.
posts.
Yeah.
Foster, donate, share.
Foster, donate, share. You've got a lot of passion for that. That's awesome.
Oh my God. It's our lives. Poor Robert didn't have any pets when he moved, before he moved in.
Kind of forced into it by
marriage. Of my friends. I know, bless his heart. He's a really incredible person. He's definitely the better person out of the two of us. He's the more patient person. He's the more reasonable person, right? He's the
maybe there's a little balancing act there.
Yeah, there's definitely a yin and yang thing going on.
All right, so we've covered a lot of topics.
I know. I kind of feel like I'm.
No,
hope I wasn't boring.
No, you we could dive back into the Game of Thrones world and then have so many conversations, because I probably need to read the books. I'm just probably too lazy to. Maybe I can.
The books are intense.
Listen to them on Audible or something like that. I don't know. Maybe I should do that. But I really got into watching the shows because it was every week there was a twist and turn, and I would get into it. But I would actually pour like a glass of wine into it, and every time they poured a glass of wine in the show, I would drink.
Oh yeah,
it was really. I got silly.
Yeah, watching that show will make you just really want to drink red wine
in almost every scene. So, but we covered a lot of stuff. It's a great conversation. Is there anything this is gonna go. I'm gonna post this into the wonderful World Wide Web and on the podcast and all the things. Anything you want to shout out before we sign off? Any major thoughts?
I want to thank you for having me on here. And
welcome. You're a great, fun conversation. I just ask a question and you can go. So that's awesome. That makes my job easy.
Well, this is such a great shop, and it's a great space, and I think it's a safe space for a lot of people. And it's just important. I think y'all done really incredible things here for the community. It's
Thanks.
not just a place where you go and bye.
Bikes are fun, and I think they connect so many people, and I'd almost love to find a guest who doesn't quite know how to ride a bike. Oh,
that would be great.
Because when you first learn how to ride a bike, and I saw it in your eyes when you're describing it, it was just like, one, it was a huge core memory, right?
Yeah.
But then it the feeling you got was like, I can do anything.
Oh, it is the freedom. Yeah.
And I love, I recall when that, and I've got videos of when my daughter learned how to ride.
Aww.
And it's like that joy and that understanding of who you are as a person is I can now do anything. There's nothing limiting me, And so I think that's what bikes are about, is just it helps us find joy in life. And
nice.
The bicycle has done so much for me in my life and that sort of thing. And so the more people I chat with, the more I find stories about them. And somehow it always the conversation starts with a bicycle, but ends up somewhere else. And I learned so much about them, and had no idea you could train a cute little animal to detect if you're having a diabetic episode, right?
Incredible. Yeah.
That's wow. I want to Google that and how do dogs do that? That's fascinating to me.
Super fascinating.
So, but yeah, just having the space is just a fun thing to learn more about people and life and all that. So I'm glad you came along.
Thank you so much.
Do you any before we go off, any future fun passion things that you have planned for?
Oh, well, husband Robert's over there. Robert taught me how to ride a motorcycle last summer.
Ooh.
So I've been really on my motorcycle a lot.
Cool.
I'm really glad the weather's gotten better because my commute to work is so much more interesting.
Are you're riding a motorbike to work?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was really empowering. But Robert's a really incredible teacher in
I know this.
everything that he teaches.
Yes.
But he was I don't really know how to drive a manual car, so like the
really?
concept of a clutch was super foreign, so I couldn't, as I was trying to like picture like how to ride a motorcycle, I didn't have any like sort of filing cabinet from which to draw, like to be like, oh, well, it'd be like this, and I was so intimidated by it. And
you know what you need to get? You need to get one of those motorcycles that's got the sidecar.
I know.
And you can put your pugs in there.
I know.
That would be so adorable. And then you have like a helmet, and then you have the exact same helmet for the pug and a pug helmet.
They don't make full face pug helmets, I don't think.
Oh, well, okay.
It's just, it is a really inherently profoundly unsafe activity. And I
know, but I'm just saying it would be super cute. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, it would be the most charming thing in the world for sure.
And I could just see like the pugs smile and hanging out. That would be really adorable. That's fun. How do you have any trips that you want to kind of take together on the motorcycle?
Robert has all the trips he wants to take on the motorcycle. We would love to get up to North Carolina.
Okay.
So one of our pugs is this pug Barone, and my life kind of revolves around him right now because he is also diabetic.
Wow.
And so he takes insulin every 12 hours, and I have to test his blood sugar twice. Anyway, I have to check his blood sugar. He gets insulin twice a day. I do hand feed him because he's also blind and deaf, and he has a vestibular disease, so he's a little unsteady. Okay, on paper, when I describe him, it sounds like profoundly inherently cruel that I'm sustaining this dog's life as somebody who is an expert in like letting dogs cross the rainbow bridge. Not an expert, whatever. I quite experienced, right?
It's not his time yet.
This dog refuses to die. He loves eating breakfast. He insists, like he gets up on the couch. He's so sturdy.
Oh, man.
He goes out. I mean, like he does all of the things our other dogs do and loves it and lives to eat his breakfast and dinner. And there's like, if you met and he plays with his toys, like if you met him, like describing him, it's horrifying. If you met him, you'd be like, he's like just doing all the dog stuff still. He loves and the
dog's like best sensory
is their nose, right? All dogs are born blind and deaf.
Is his nose working?
Yes. Holy moly. His nose works, and it's incredible. His nose works. I mean, his nose works really well for a pug, but like really well for a dog. He'll be dead asleep on the couch. I will walk in from the kitchen to the living room with a piece of string cheese from a dead sleep. And his head swings up, he stands up, he zeroes in. It's like he's staring at me.
Oh man.
Right? And he knows I have string cheese, and he's relentless. And string cheese is one of the few treats he can have. So he can have a little piece of string cheese. I do have to be careful because diabetic dogs are prone to pancreatitis. So we have to keep his fat level,
And all the facts about all the dogs.
Well, I do know a lot of dog breeds too.
Rosie,
like I can just
Rosie.
But anyway, so unfortunately, the point being, we would love to get to North Carolina on our motorcycles. Traveling is a little more difficult with Barone. I'm sure there is somebody who could watch. I know there's somebody who could watch him who would do a great job of like getting him his insulin and stuff like that. Barone, because I get up so early for work, Barone is ready to eat breakfast at 3 in the morning.
Oh my
I don't
gosh.
feed him till 4, but he's very vocal from 3 to 4 a.m. So it's really not so much like, can somebody else take care of his diabetic needs? It's like, am I going to inflict Barone on another person? Do I have enough money to motivate somebody
All right, so maybe
to want to take care of him?
Are you on the social medias?
All of them.
So maybe
unfortunately.
maybe we can find a dog sitter for you so you can take that trip.
I need somebody who is an early bird.
An early bird. All right. So maybe like, okay, I don't know who that could be. It's not me.
And a very tolerant. I mean, it takes a lot of. You have to really be into Barone to want to accommodate all of Barone's needs.
Gotcha. Well, Rosie, I think we're out of time.
I know. I'm so sorry.
I think we're out of time, Rosie.
Holding y'all hostage.
No, it's a fun
throwing
conversation.
Barone is. I live my life in intervals of.
How do you come up with the names for these dogs?
Well, all the pugs are bees, but
do you open up your medieval literature books?
It
from
depends.
College and like
sometimes.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes. Chaucer, like characters from Chaucer's stories are really good. Arcita, Palamon, the Pardoner.
Your recollection's still just amazing. I can't even remember any of that. I know I took some English classes at some point, but I can't remember any of those things. You're amazing. I appreciate you for being here. I think that one of the best ways to have an amazing little podcast show is to have some cute little animals. So thanks for bringing Rosie and Bing and sharing all your stories. So I appreciate this time with you. I'm glad you came.
Oh, really been a pleasure. Right.
And if you want to hit that